another flamboyant, firebrand business leader, Zubair Motiwala, a former president of Karachi Karachi Chamber of Commerce, and chairman of Council of Textile. Zubair Sahab, Jazim, please take it.
Thank you very much, Pak Sahab. We are grateful for all the support that has been extended by all the panelists and speakers, and it has been a very learning experience, much appreciated by members across various centers in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and other locations. First one is for Mr. Nisha sir. Sir, as we go by our theme, economy back to track, your background on if we are heading in the right direction, and the ambitious GDP growth target that has been set, whether you think that would be achievable. Shah Sahab, sir, your views, please.
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me now? Thank you for that question. Very difficult to predict the future generally, but I think the environment that we are in, unfortunately, if one has to be realistic, I can't say that the GDP, although the GDP forecast is very low, 2.4%, but the environment and the situation that we are in, although our economic survey is saying that this year our growth has been around 3.3%, but when you look at the economy, the feel that you get is that perhaps even 3.3% growth, which they've said is provisional, when they'll finalize these figures, and it's not, it invariably, when you do the calculations, when you do it in 2020, what was the growth rate for 2019, you will probably come to the conclusion at that time that the growth rate was not 3.3%. And there is one reason why I am saying it, and one example that I can give you is that the overall, one of the critical component which moves the wheels of the economy is the oil consumption. So overall, the oil consumption this year has gone down by nearly 20%. So in that, part of it is furnace oil has been replaced by LNG. So if you reduce that, if you just take only the high-speed diesel, which is the transportation the common person, common man's use, even that has gone down by nearly 17–16% this year, which I have not seen in my living memory. So I think things are much worse than what are being reported, and we are in a very, very serious crisis. So in that situation, when you look at next year, we are in a contractive, obviously we are in an external debt crisis, we have serious, both the twin deficits are there, the external account deficit, which had deteriorated phenomenally in the last 2 years, government is trying to contain it. Then the fiscal deficit, again 7.2% this year. So with these figures, next year, we also saw some contradictory reporting in the last few days that Ministry of Planning, the NEC actually approved 4% growth for next year. But then the Ministry of Finance has for the first time reported there's a gap between the two. They are saying that the growth rate is going to be 2.4%. but obviously 2.4% will be less than the population growth. So if the target is 2.4%, and when we are to balance the books, we are trying to increase our tax collection by nearly 38% next year in a contracting economy, I don't think there is any magic wand through which you can actually raise that much taxes. And if you do try to do it, then it is going to have severe adverse impact on the economic growth. I think the job situation will further deteriorate. Large number of people, Dr. Hafiz Pasha was saying that nearly 4 million people will go below poverty line. You know, maybe 800,000 people will lose their jobs. So we are in a very, very tough situation, I think. But this is the situation that we are. So I thought that was the question, right? On the what is likely to be the economic growth, as I heard.
Second question comes to you from our audience. That is with reference to the rupee devaluation. What do you think that would bring an impact to our economy, and if there is any positive side you foresee that would be going to us?
Thank you. When you do not value your currency at its correct value, and it is overvalued, then basically you are creating some very serious distortions in the economy. And one of the most, or potentially most dangerous ones are that you are, and for a country like Pakistan, you are favoring imports over exports. And over a period of time, if this continues, as we have seen in Pakistan, this leads to deindustrialization, because then everybody is importing goods rather than buying local goods, because the imports come mostly from developed countries or countries whose economies are export oriented, where they have export-led growth. They are not exporting their surplus production, they are producing for export, and they have economies of scale which your industry can never compete with. So over a period of time, as we have seen, we did experience and began to experience deindustrialization. I think everybody knows at least somebody who moved away from industry into trading or onto the stock market or into real estate. So it is one of the most dangerous things that you can do if it is sustained over a period of time, as we saw in our own country. The rupee was kept at a particular level which did not represent its true value. The reasons may have been, and which were in fact cited, that every loss in the rupee value added to our debt servicing, in our indebtedness, and created difficulties for us. But those difficulties are nothing compared to if you are going to deindustrialize the country. Because Pakistan has always had problems, and we've always been deficient in foreign currency. Local currency, and unfortunately, we have never been shy of printing. So, but you can't print foreign currency. So therefore, it is extremely important. And these decisions with regard to the value of the rupee, in my humble opinion, should not be influenced by considerations of either tax collection or their impact on the quantum of debt servicing or our indebtedness, because you create distortions that then do not remain within your control. So therefore it is absolutely important. And I think where the rupee has been adjusted now. The caretaker government started adjusting it, and now the present government has adjusted it, and I think this adjustment will continue. And now we are committed under an IMF program where it is going to be market-based. And it is important to make a distinction between free float and market-based. Unfortunately, we see that these are used interchangeably at times, or most of the times these days. We are not in a free float. Free float is where you and I can then buy and trade in currencies, which we cannot do in this country. Free float is the dollar, the euro, the pound sterling. This is managed float. And it is essential that we have a managed float because our forex market is very thin and is vulnerable to manipulation by the big players, and therefore it is essential that the central bank keeps a very watchful eye. And I think I cannot stress the importance anymore. That's it.
The whole of the country, the direction it is heading, and you feel that we have the strength to revive it back and bring it to the track?
So, I beg your pardon?
We have the potential to bring our economy back to the track. And
what is the way forward? Is the question?
Who is this question directed at? Could you please name the person?
Ji, Wahid sir?
Ji.
Question towards you.
Acha, Farmaye. Could you repeat the question, please?
Is the situation correctable? Can we...
Oh, of course. And
the strength of our economy, you think that it can revive? Yes.
I think that what is commendable about this budget overall is that at least it is an attempt to put Pakistan's economy back on track. Some of the most difficult decisions, attempts have been made to address them. Of course, it needs to be polished a little more. There may be kinks here and there which need to be corrected. But overall, this new law that has been brought in to compel non-filers to become filers, although there was enough legislation on the statute books to compel them, but this was never attempted before. And despite being pointed out several times from different quarters, but this time I think our financial managers have taken note of and addressed that. And at least I anticipate that if this is applied judiciously, not from the point of view of a witch hunt or trying to penalize people, but to motivate people to become filers, it will go a long way in addressing our very fundamental problem that we've had of a very narrow tax base. It is going to widen the tax base. There is enough resilience in the economy. And mind you, I'm always mindful of the fact that the data that we have before us does not reflect the data of the total economy, of the total national economy. Because we have a very sizable informal economy, or an informal part of our economy, which, and data for that is not that one can only guess, there can be guesstimates. And the data that we have before us does not incorporate the data that pertains to the informal sector. They are one of the largest employers, if you see from the point of view of providing employment. And at the same time, as Mr. Shirani pointed out, our policies over the years created a situation of arbitrage in their favor. So they've had a very good deal, and the organized sector has been holding the raw part of the stick. So there is tremendous potential in the economy, and surely it can be put back. But the important thing is not only to take difficult decisions, but then once you've taken them, to stay the course. We've seen time and again that policies have been changed midway because of influenced by interested groups. I mean, if you have, for instance, one can talk about whether it is the sanction of IPPs or it is tax matters, and the important thing is one must stay the course. And for that you need political will on a sustained basis. And everybody has to then ensure that whatever targets are set, then they will all work together to achieve them. I have a lot of confidence that inshallah we, by the time we finish this IMF program, this 3 years, we should be in a much better position, not because of just the IMF program, because that is a compulsion that we have, unfortunately, but because of the commitment that this government appears to be making to take difficult policy decisions and put Pakistan's economy back on track.
Thank you. Siraj sir, this one is for you. We in the recent past we have seen some declining trend with reference to the foreign direct investment. Your views on our economy, and are we still the magnet for foreign investors?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If you allow me to give first a comment on what's going on the budget, instead of that specific questioning. See, we at Karachi Chamber, after studying this budget and listening to the speech and going through the finance bill and everything, some kind of images have come into my mind, which I want to just share with it. What has happened? That PTI government, Imran Khan, called the whole economic team of Shabar Zaidi Saab and Sheikh Saab and all of them. And he told them, I've been saying and I need to double the tax of FBR. So they said, okay sir, we will do that, and I need to take care of, documentation. Everybody has to be documented. That's fine. Now what happened after that is every officer in the FBR came out with suggestions that this segment is not paying, this segment is paying less, this segment is doing this segment is doing that. So what, at the end, everything is in the budget now. They want to tax everybody in every time, all together, and it seems like we are in for a big situation for the next 3 to 4 months, or maybe 6 months. This is a general perception what I've got from the budget, that instead of getting only those people who can easily be documented, they are trying to document each and every segment together at the same time. And in many cases, the FBR has been trying for the last 10, 15 years. At the same time, they are all burdening the same people who are already paying taxes. See, I personally feel that there is, direction is okay. They want to document everything. I'm fine with it, and it should happen. And somewhere we have to start. There's no issue on that. But have we studied, have we checked the capability and capacity of each and every segment, whether they can be immediately documented in just one go, by hook, by crook, by coercive measures, or whatever? Or have we studied the industries and or existing taxpayers who are being burdened more, whether they are capable of taking more load, because they have been being loaded every year for the last 20 years? So this is the main perception. I'll give you an example, because I belong to beverage industry. Beverage industry is already paying 100 billion rupees per annum, plus, not less than that, guaranteed. Now they have increased FED. Everybody has been talking about FED. They've increased from 11.5 to 13%.